Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 21st of February, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So we have an update here from a core developer who works at Nethermind, that the Nethermind client is now fully synced with the Beverly Hills Verkle trees testnet. So Beverly Hills now becomes the first multi-client Verkle tree testnet with Geth and Nethermind nodes in consensus. Also, Nethermind is running with the new experimental flat DB layout. Now, those of you who remember, I guess like a few months ago maybe, I was talking about Verkle trees and about how that's going to be the next thing, especially after proto-danksharding goes live. That's going to be a major upgrade for Ethereum. It's been on the Ethereum roadmap for quite a while now. It's something that a lot of people are very excited about. And the main reason, well, I guess there's like a few reasons, but it definitely helps with scalability. That's the main reason, I think, because it will allow us to potentially increase the block size as well as have I guess like add features that work with light clients as well, which is obviously something that people consider the holy grail of running nodes, being able to run them as a light client. So that's very, very cool. But yeah, now that we have this progress that there is a multi-client kind of devnet, or testnet, I should say, up and running here between Geth and Nethermind. Now, this sort of stuff is definitely, I guess, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes live maybe late next year, early 2025. It could happen sooner than that. I think EIP 4844, if it happens this year, it'll probably happen by the end of the year. Maybe November's probably the latest that we could probably do it. And then in terms of Verkle trees, yeah, it just depends, right? Because things can kind of like get delayed or get kind of removed from one upgrade and go to the next, like we saw with 4844. Not being included with Shanghai. A bunch of other upgrades weren't included, or EIPs, I should say, weren't included with Shanghai and have been pushed out to Denkun, which is the upgrade that hopefully 4844 and those upgrades will be in. But generally, yeah, dates are kind of very hard to give for these more out there things. But that doesn't stop the core developers from working on it, of course, and that's what we're seeing here, which is really, really awesome. So if you want to give it a try yourself and join the testnet, you can. There's a GitHub repository there that you can go check out. But I just figured this was worth highlighting because it is a major upgrade coming to the Ethereum network, hopefully in the next 1 to 2 years. Even though it's so far away, it's great to see that the core developers are working on it even today. All right, so speaking of 4844, Jacek here from the, he works as a core developer as part of the Nimbus team, I believe. Yeah, I think it's a Nimbus team. Shared something about how the people working on EIP 4844 have been able to put forward a proposal or not a proposal, I guess like a pull request for a significant improvement over the status quo of 4844 so far. So simulations of this improvement show a 50% reduction in block dissemination latency, which is a rare feat. And then Jacek continues and explains how this works and links to a GitHub comment thread here that you can go check out as well, or pull request, I should say, that you can go check out. So this is super cool because the fact is, as I mentioned before, 4844 is hopefully going into the upgrade after Shanghai. It's definitely something that is still changing. Like the spec hasn't been frozen or anything like that. There are devnets and there are testnets plans and things like that. And a lot of people are working on it, but there are still significant improvements that are being discovered and being made here. Now, from my reading of this, obviously I'm not the most technical person in the world, but from my reading of this, block dissemination latency to me, just kind of looking at it and doing a high-level overview here, it means that blocks can move around the network a lot faster. So basically, there is a So yeah, I don't know what block dissemination latency means on the technical side of things. I definitely, I'm not technical enough to understand that. But the fact that there's a 50% reduction in this latency, I mean, I know what latency means, of course, but I don't want to give the wrong information, so I'm not even going to try and guess what this is. But the fact that there has been a 50% reduction and we're pretty far along with 4844 so far is a huge feat. It just shows that there are still massive / major, I guess, improvements that can come to 4844 and will be coming before it goes live on the network, and that might push it out to next year, maybe, who knows, right? The thing with these upgrades is that, yeah, we have we want to get them done as soon as possible, but then what ends up happening is that people find better ways of doing things. This is actually what happened with Ethereum Proof of Stake a lot of the time. People found better and better ways of doing things, and they knew that once it was on the live network, it'd be very hard to change it when it was live, so they would rather get the changes in before it went live, and that happened quite a few times. So The same thing happens with all upgrades, but obviously the more important they are, the more important it is to test it, to make sure it's all, make sure it works as advertised, sort of thing, which is exactly what ERP 1559 went through, right? I mean, that was a change to the way the Ethereum fee market worked. That was obviously affecting every single user on the network. It's affecting a big part of the network. It had to be right. That's why it took 2.5 years plus for it to come to mainnet, because we needed to make sure that everything was sound, the mechanism was sound, and it would work. And obviously it's worked wonders, and we all get a lot of value out of it. Same is true for things with ARP 4844. There's a lot of extensive testing being done on this, because even if something goes wrong, like, we can obviously fix it, but the ideal case is that nothing goes wrong. I mean, that's always the ideal case with these things. And it's funny, like, how many months on are we from the merge right now? Like five months or something from the merge? September, October, November, December, January. Yeah, five-ish months, and just over 5 months there since the merge, and there hasn't been any issues with that, which is just huge. It's still a testament to all the work that went into that. But the same, I guess, is true for every upgrade. We want to make sure that we're not introducing any, obviously, bugs, any critical issues or anything like that. And we want to make sure that we deliver the best product possible. And by we, I mean the core devs, obviously not me. I'm not there developing this stuff or researching this stuff. But yeah, great to see this, and thanks to Jessek for sharing this. If you want to dive into more about how this works, there is a thread which I'll link in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, Yi Zhang here from the Scroll team put out a blog post where they captioned it on Twitter by saying, zkEVM has arguably become the gold standard technology for scaling Ethereum. In this article, I want to share some of the lessons we have learned while building the zkEVM and how we've been thinking about different trade-offs along the way. The we obviously being Scroll here. Now, I highly recommend giving this post a read, or you can read the Twitter thread here. But the overarching philosophy that Scroll seems to be going with, and I think I mentioned this maybe a couple months ago, was that they're trying to be a community-first project, essentially. Now, they distinctly call out one aspect of that, and that's the aspect of building everything out in the open from day one. So they say that, sometimes there'll be teams that build everything in-house. You won't know what they're building. You won't be able to see it. It's not open source. It's not public. And then once it's ready to go live, they'll put it public. They'll open source it. And there's nothing wrong with that approach, right? That's totally fine. And I don't think Ye or the Scroll team is trying to say that there's anything wrong with that. But they're taking a different approach, a radically different approach, where they actually want to mirror what Ethereum is doing, which is essentially developing out in the open from the get-go. Like, none of this private development and then open source things. No, everything's open source from day one. Everything's developed out in the open from day one. All the research and development is done out in the open, which I think is a really cool way of doing things. In saying that, there are obviously trade-offs here. Trade-offs being that you may end up with too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. Or in reality, it may just be the Scroll team doing a lot of the work for a couple of years, and then more and more people come into the ecosystem and are able to contribute, which is totally fine. That's what happened with Ethereum. So yeah, there are trade-offs here and there for these sorts of things. But still, I think it's a really cool approach here. And that really does speak to being community first, because you can say you're community first, but if you're developing everything privately and the community only gets to see it once you're ready to share it and put it live and everything, well, are you really community first, right? That's debatable. So I think Scroll's approach here is really great. Now, that's not the only thing that Ye says in this post and in this thread here. There is a bunch of other things that fall off of that, but that basically is the overarching theme, which I think is really, really cool. Now, disclosure, I'm an investor in Scroll, as you guys know, but yeah, I'm super excited about them. I'm excited about their zkEVM, excited about their development philosophy, excited about the fact that they really care about the community here. They are more on the quiet side of things. They haven't done as much marketing, I guess, as the other teams, like zkSync and Polygon obviously do a lot of marketing around their zkEVM, but Scroll hasn't really. And I think that's fine, because honestly, like, I actually prefer teams doing marketing when they're either close to launch or have something live, because, I mean, unless you're an already established team, it burns people out if you keep talking about it, right? And it sets people up for disappointment if you overpromise and then under-deliver. So I do like the approach of, still do marketing from time to time, still do community awareness and things like that, but don't go, really, really hard unless it's a few weeks out or maybe a couple months out from launch. And then once you've launched, you obviously want to do as much marketing as possible to get as much attention as possible. But it's a process. These things aren't something that is a kind of flash in the pan. These platforms, they're definitely a process. It's definitely something that happens over longer periods of time. We've seen that with Arbitrum and Optimism. I mean, Arbitrum launched in August of 2021, and I'm actually going to talk about their growth in a little bit, but they launched back then. Optimism launched, I guess, technically in July, but it was permission, so they launched a bit later than that. But still, it's been 12 to 18 months, I guess, or will be 12 to 18 months soon, since they have launched, been live, growing, and they do their own forms of marketing. They have their own way of doing things, but it is a marathon, not a sprint, I think is my overall point there. But anyway, you can go read Ye's article and tweet thread. I'll link them both in the YouTube description below. All right, so EigenLayer has released the first public version of their white paper. So it's on the forum and at the website here. Of course, I'll link it in the YouTube description for you guys to check out. They're also going to be doing a Twitter Spaces on the 22nd of February at 5 p.m. UTC, which is 9 a.m. Pacific time here, and you can set a reminder for yourself if you find the link in the YouTube description. But this is really cool. I mean, I haven't gone through it just yet. It is quite dense. I mean, it's 19 pages. It's not the longest white paper ever, but it is about 19 pages worth of, or not even 19 pages. I guess like taking away the references and everything, it's about 15 pages there of things, and there's an appendix obviously. But yeah, about 15 pages worth of stuff to read through here about EigenLayer. And I've talked about EigenLayer a bunch on the refuel, I mean, for a very long time now. So obviously I don't need to go through it again, but the white paper is there for you to go check out. Now, John here had a really great highlighted a really great part of the white paper here, which was section 4.4, which says EigenLayer can incentivize Ethereum staker decentralization. And then in these paragraphs, I'm not going to read them out, they go on to describe how this would happen. So essentially how this would happen is that services could use EigenLayer and then say, okay, well, we only want nodes as part of our network, or as part of our service. We only want restaked nodes that are not part of the big staking pool. So they can basically say, we don't want Coinbase validators, we don't want Binance validators, and these are Ethereum validators. We don't want Lido validators, right? We want Solo validators, and we want Rocket Pool validators, for example. Now, obviously, Solo validators is a harder thing to identify, because there's, I mean, unless you really dig deep, it's difficult to identify there. But Rocket Pool is very easy. You can see all the mini pools, right? You can see all the node operators, so it's very easy to identify those. And then what that does is it basically allows that service to inherit a lot of Ethereum's existing decentralization through that restaking mechanism, and only subscribing to the validators that they actually want to be validating on their network, which is funny because this would actually, as the title suggests, incentivize Ethereum staker decentralization. Because let's say a service sets up something and needs validators, and they say, okay, well, we're only taking validators from restaked validators from Rocket Pool, and then they're paying out all these rewards, and people are making all this money. Well, people on centralized exchanges and on Coinbase or Binance or wherever, they're going to be like, wait a sec, why am I staking with Coinbase on Binance when I can't restake my ETH with these services when they're paying out more? I'm going to take my ETH from here, from Coinbase or Binance or whatever, and I'm going to put it in Rocket Pool. So that's how it, obviously incentivizes the distribution of stake and the decentralization of stake, which is something I hadn't thought of before, but it's really cool. I mean, there's a lot of implications there of these things, and it definitely depends on how you think of things as well, because a lot of the people I imagine staking on Coinbase and Binance are probably the noobs, so to speak, right? For lack of a better term, and they're probably not going to be too aware of EigenLayer, but there are a lot of people staking with Lido, for example, which I would consider to be not as noob as the centralized exchange stakers, and they may be paying attention. They may see that and I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave Lido and I'm going to go stake with Rocket Pool, because I'll be able to restake with an EigenLayer service here. So that's really, really cool. And I actually hope that these services do this. I think it's great for not only their own project, but obviously great for Ethereum, because at the end of the day, they're getting restaked validators, which means that the more value they drive to Ethereum, the more value is securing their own chain, and the more decentralized their own chain or service, I should say, could become, which I think is very, very cool. But yeah, something to digest, to sit on, to think a lot about, but definitely something that I think is going to turn a lot of heads, especially when this stuff goes live. I mean, EigenLayer has already gotten a lot of attention. It's gotten a lot of hype since I first spoke about it many months ago. It's definitely one of the most hyped up projects these days. But I think it's for good reason. Honestly, I really do think that EigenLayer can, it's not yet because it's not live or anything like that, but it can potentially be a 0 to 1 innovation for the Ethereum ecosystem. And I've talked about this before, how I don't see that many 0 to 1 innovations anymore. Whether that be at the protocol level, the app level, doesn't matter what it is. I just don't see many 0 to 1s. And that's just by their nature. There's not going to be many 0 to 1s. But when I do see them, I get very excited about them. Or when I do see the potential for something to turn into a 0 to 1 innovation, I get very excited about it. And as time has gone on, I've gotten more and more excited about EigenLayer and the possibilities for both what EigenLayer can offer as part of the services, but also being able to help the Ethereum ecosystem from a decentralization perspective and also from a distributing stake perspective, which obviously, as we all know, the stake could be better distributed than it currently is. And obviously, post-withdrawals, we're going to see what happens there as well. But that all excites me, and that all points to EigenLayer having a relatively good chance of being another 0 to 1 innovation in the Ethereum ecosystem, which obviously makes me the most excited. But anyway, as I said, we'll link the white paper in the YouTube description below for you to go check out. All right, so I did mention before that I was going to talk about Arbitrum's growth and just layer 2s in general. So Hunter here from the Arbitrum team highlighted that Arbitrum daily transaction chart has been mooning recently. It's almost at 1 million transactions per day now. And as you can see, the trend is up. It's not just a spike. I mean, it is a pretty big spike recently, but it has been trending up over time here. Now, I've spoken about this a bunch before, about how layer 2s are definitely growing a lot and things have definitely spiked up a lot here. And I don't know what's driving this. I haven't actually dug into it myself, but I think just generally these layer 2s, whether they be Arbitrum or Optimism or the other generalized ones, I mean, L2 Beat shows which ones are the biggest here. Really, I mean, in terms of generalized platforms, it's just Arbitrum and Optimism right now. But it really speaks to the fact that obviously still a bear market. Obviously, people are getting a lot of value out of this sorts of stuff. On Arbitrum, there's no liquidity mining because there's no Arbi token. There is liquidity mining for various projects, but there's no liquidity mining where Arbitrum pays out Arbi tokens, for example, to the projects or anything like that. There is probably airdrop farming, but honestly, I don't think it would account for something like this. And obviously, there will be times where projects do their own kind of thing that incentivizes transaction usage. The clearest example of this actually was Optimism recently, where if I can bring up the Optimism Block Explorer here, yeah, I can actually. I bring up the Optimism Block Explorer. You can actually see their chart on the daily transactions. It spiked up a lot, right? And it was growing quite steadily, and then it came back down, and it's kind of been going sideways. Now, this spike, I think, was due to the Optimism Quests thing that they were doing, and then after that was finished, it kind of spiked down from there, and then they did their airdrop 2, which actually didn't give any tokens to people that had been doing the Optimism Quests, which I think disappointed some people, but there was never any indication that that was going to be the case, so I guess that depends what your thoughts are there, but they've remained steady, and they're at about 200 or just below 200,000 transactions per day. Now, not all transactions are created equal as well. It just depends how it's counted. From the data source point of view, but also from the chain point of view. So don't be comparing this to Arbitrum and be like, okay, well, Arbitrum is doing 5 times as many transactions per day as Optimism. That's not exactly how it works. And it depends on what you define as a transaction, what you allow to be a transaction. It's kind of like what happens with Solana, where they say they have all this TPS, but the majority of it is just validated messages that are being passed around, which aren't counted in any other blockchain as transactions. So I think there is something similar in Arbitrum. I'm not sure how much it accounts for the activity here, and I'm not even sure if Etherscan or Arbiscan, I should say, filters for this. So don't quote me on that, but I know that there is differences there. So don't look at these as just raw numbers and draw any conclusions from it. My main point was just to show you that things can change quite quickly when people are either incentivized or they think that they're incentivized to do something. And what we want to see, and what I've been going on about for many I guess like years at this point, what we always want to see is organic, sustainable growth. And I think Optimism and Ecosystem has been organically and sustainably growing just fine. Same with Arbitrum, evidently. And I think it's not just on the transactions chart. You can see this. You can see this from the developer activity, from the apps that are on there, from the users that are onboarding, from the exchanges are supporting them. Like, for example, Coinbase supporting Arbitrum, right, the other day, and they're obviously supporting Optimism as well. Binance supporting them. Like, that all just it adds up, right? It all accumulates and makes these things grow and allows them to grow their communities as well. Now, of course, tokens play a part too. I mean, Optimism has a token right now, and Arbitrum, I mean, people are speculating that they're going to have a token, of course. but we don't know if they will or won't at this stage. But I think that regardless of that, over longer periods of time, you can still see which things have organic growth and which things don't, and which things have sustainable growth as well, and which things don't, especially over market cycles. Because right now is a bear market still, guys. Like, it doesn't really mean anything to me that some things have pumped and ETH and BTC have gone up a little bit. That's not a bull market. That's like still a bear market. It's just things going up because they got so brutalized last year. A full-blown bull market is things at new all-time highs, things just going crazy every day, all these on-chain metrics going ballistic, all these new users flooding in, the Coinbase app being number one on the App Store, or the top 10 on the App Store. Those are the kind of bull market things that you would see. We're not near that. We're not even close to that yet, I think. And I've said multiple times on the refill that I would tell you guys when I feel like we were close to starting a new bull cycle. But right now we're just in, as I mentioned the other day, what I think is an accumulation range. People who are around right now are either traders or they're long-term investors just buying. And the traders are the ones that are causing this ranging to happen, because they'll be like, okay, well, I'm going to long here, and then $50 later on ETH, they'll just sell. They'll be like, okay, I'm taking profits here. They'll just scalp. And that's totally fine. That's what traders do. But long-term investors are buying. They're DCAing in, and then eventually it hits a point where the price goes up, and then it's reflexive from there. The price keeps going up, and people get FOMO, and they buy in. All the bears are sidelined, like, oh my god, I need to buy in now. And I mean, just generally, that's why we see so much volatility as well. But anyway, that's enough on the markets there. I just wanted to highlight that Arbitrum has been seeing some great growth recently, but always good to contextualize that growth and understand that not all growth are created equal. So, or not all growth is created equal. But anyway, I'll link this in the YouTube description for you to see the chart for yourself. Last thing here on Arbitrum. Stephen Goldfeder, one of the co-founders of Off-Chain Labs, the developers behind Arbitrum, put out a tweet where he said, EVM Plus on Arbitrum will be a game changer, opening up the EVM to millions of new developers and industries. For the first time ever, Rust, C, and C++ devs will be able to access the biggest DeFi ecosystem in crypto, and I can't wait to see what they build. Now, this was what I talked about the other day, which was called Stylus, and I think they're calling it EVM Plus now because I guess it's a more catchy name than Stylus here, but it's basically the ability for people to develop smart contracts for the EVM in Rust, C++, and other languages, so not Solidity, which obviously opens up smart contract programming to so many more developers out there. Now, obviously, Arbitrum isn't the first to do this. There are other blockchains out there that have been adopting their own language and doing their own thing that's not Solidity, but the really cool and innovative and important thing here is that this is being done on the EVM, right? This is not being done as part of a new virtual machine and a new stack. It's being done as part of the EVM, and the EVM is an environment that a lot of developers are already familiar with. So the fact that they're already familiar with that is really cool, and it already has like all the tooling, developer network effects, and liquidity and all that good stuff there. It just means that developers can come in, be like, okay, well, I don't want to learn Solidity, but I know Rust or I know C++, and I'm going to develop on Arbitrum, on the EVM, and I'm going to build my app there because I can do it using these languages. And there are other projects focusing on this sort of stuff as well. I did talk about how Starkware has been focusing on people being able to migrate their Solidity contracts to Cairo contracts or transpile them to Cairo, but also Starkware being able to have Cairo as the native language of Starknet. So there are multiple attempts happening across the spectrum here, and all of the layer 2 ecosystems, I think, are making their own play. But yeah, just something very exciting, I think, out of the Arbitrum ecosystem, and I can't wait to see the first apps go live, if they aren't live already in these languages. All right, last up here, we have a big announcement out of the Gitcoin passports ecosystem. So after months of hard work, they said here, we're thrilled to announce the launch of the Gitcoin passport scorer API, which makes it 10 times easier than before to, quote, passport gate, end quote, your Web3 project. So the API stuff is definitely, obviously, only relevant to developers here, but what developers will be able to do is basically use Gitcoin passport, which is a Sybil defense tool, to basically prove that whoever's interacting with their apps aren't trying to Sybil the app, or are potentially not a real human, such as a bot or something like that. And with the launch of this this kind of like tool today with this Scorer API. It's, as I said, gotten much easier to integrate this into an app now. So yeah, if you're a developer, this is definitely something that you may be interested in. But this speaks to, I guess, like the wider trend that we're seeing lately around identity and decentralized identity, and being able to verify people who they are, say they are on chain, being able to filter out the bots, being able to filter out the Sybil, the Sybilers, so to speak, or the Sybilers, so to speak here. And I have been talking about another project that I came across the other day or a few weeks ago called the Ethereum Attestation Service, which I actually got a nice overview of. I went on a call with the with some of the team there, and I got an overview of what they're doing. I think it's really, really cool, and I'll be talking more about it as time goes on. But they're not the only ones doing it. There's been other attempts over the years, like Proof of Humanity, which was integrated into Gitcoin. There's that dystopian one that people talk about, WorldCoin. There is Sign In with Ethereum, and that whole effort as well. So there are multiple efforts on multiple fronts here. ENS, I guess, is an effort too here, and there's plenty more out there. But I think that we're finally getting to a point, especially with some of these more mature services, of where we kind of are getting a good idea of how to do this Sybil resistance and how to do on-chain identity in a privacy-preserving way as well. And there's, of course, Sysmo, which I've talked about a lot before. They give zk badges to people, and people can prove that they've done something on chain without having to reveal where they've done it. So, for example, you can prove that you have X amount of tokens on your cold storage address without having to reveal that without having to reveal that address, and that's cryptographically proven. You just get an NFT zk badge for that, which I obviously think is really cool. But yeah, as I said, this one out of Gitcoin Passport is for developers. So if you are a developer, you should definitely go check this out. If you haven't yet, I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, I've got a couple minutes here. Just forgot to mention this yesterday. I was talking about ETHDenver and about how next week there won't be any refuels, but I can't remember if I mentioned this exactly yesterday, but if you're going to ETHDenver, please just kind of find me and say hey. It's going to be very hard for me to organize anything with people. My schedule's already pretty much flat out. I've already kind of filled it up with events and things like that. So if you want to catch up or have a chat or just meet me in real life, just find me at a conference or a side event, or of course the Daily Gwei meetup. If you were lucky enough to get a ticket to that, I'll obviously be there. I'll be at the Bankless meetup as well. I'm going to be at Shelling Point. I think I'm going to be at the Wallet Day as well, and I'm going to be at the ETHDenver main event too. I'm going to be there from technically I arrive on the Monday, but I'm going to be jet lagged this house, so I'm probably not going to do anything on the Monday. But the Tuesday onwards, I'm going to be around basically in Denver, doing things, catching up with different people, with friends and stuff like that at the more public events. So yeah, if you do see me, I'll be wearing my hat. I'll be easy to spot. You guys know what I look like. Do come up and say hello, because I mean the main reason I go to these conferences is to meet my friends, meet people that listen to the show, meet the community, just get amongst the Ethereum culture. So yeah, don't be shy. Come up and say hi. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but yeah. Anyway, on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.